one big beautiful bill that was passed by in the House of Representatives. I think it was last week or perhaps the week before. This omnibus bill that's supposed to incorporate Trump's entire agenda, the agenda that 79 million people, he says, elected him to do. Now, whenever he says that, he talks about the 79 million people who voted for him, and I suppose that the 75 million people, the other people, including myself, who didn't vote for him, don't matter anymore because we voted the wrong way, and we're therefore not American or on pig's route, nevertheless. But anyway, in Trump's one big beautiful bill, there's some things there that you ought to know about. The bill itself is over 1,100 pages long, and at a recent town meeting of one of the Republican supporters, the representative was forced to admit that he hadn't read it. So the people asked him, well, how then can you vote for a piece of legislation that important and that extensive and not having read it? And his answer was simply, I'm a Republican, so whatever the party votes for, that is whatever Trump wants is what I want and what you should want. That was his response. In addition, in the bill itself, there are a couple of provisions that would enhance Trump's position as king of America. One provision in the bill, and remember now, this is a bill. This is not law. Fortunately, Trump hasn't abandoned that part of the Constitution that requires legislation to be enacted and passed by both houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate. But one provision in the bill would allow the president, acting unilaterally and at his own discretion, to cancel elections. The other provision would allow him to delay elections as he sees fit. And he said, well, what's the objective? The objective there is to create a mechanism by which Trump could remain president essentially for the rest of his life. That's just in case somebody decides to enforce the constitutional provision which would prohibit him from running again. Another inclusion in the so-called Big Beautiful Bill would take away the authority of judges to enforce contempt orders. You might know that since Trump's re-election and since his inauguration, his administration has been sued well over 300 times. Then you might know also that various courts, from judges appointed across the political spectrum, Republican, Democrat, or whatever, have issued more than 25 injunctions. That is, these are orders telling him either to do something or not to do something. They've said they give lip service to the courts, but they haven't complied with any of those orders, leading at least two judges to initiate contempt proceeding. A contempt proceeding is a situation where the court requires you to explain why you didn't follow its order, and presumably upon your inability to explain that, the court could punish you, either by issuance of a fine or in some cases even jail time. Well, the Big Beautiful Bill would take away the authority of judges to do that. And it would require going forward and retroactively that somebody who asked for an injunction to post a bond. Now, that bond would have to be in some amount determined by the court. The bond meaning put up money or put up something that could be converted to money. The obvious thing there is to keep litigants from ability financially, to deter them financially from even seeking judicial relief in the first place. And one final point on that, and I'll turn it back over to Hassan, with respect to judicial relief and litigation, the Trump administration continues to lose its battle against law firms who have the audacity to represent clients who disagree with Trump. Over and over again, the thing that the courts have done most consistently is try to protect the legal profession, even though Trump administration has now announced that it will no longer accept recommendations from the American Bar Association for who are to be appointed to federal judgeships. They have concluded that too often the the American Bar Association has recommended judges that were too liberal in their bent. Rather, he's going to depend upon the Federalist Society and other organizations of that ilk that they gave us, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and others. The 400 district court judges that he's appointed so far around the country. Hassan?
And a couple things. I want to jump in at the point of the ABA. And for the viewers out there, I'm a member of the ABA, and I've seen the administration have a very aggressive stance toward the ABA. The ABA stands for the American Bar Association, probably the largest association of lawyers we have in the country. It's been the preeminent organization that rates judges and lawyers for all presidents. So he talked about him not. The reality is when he's produced people and nominated people who weren't qualified for the job. The argument is that, and I think Bondi has said it, the argument is that they favor liberal candidates, meaning a Democrat refers someone, they approve them, Republican refer they don't approve them. But they're giving numbers and justification for it. And it was when Obama was president, Obama was a Supreme Court scholar, constitutional scholar. It was many people that he nominated in the ABA said, "No, Obama, this person isn't it." Trump has been known, I think he nominated someone who had never been to trial before and never had a case before to be a judge. He didn't know the federal statute. So he's been known to appoint people who aren't qualified. We see this whole thing with DEI about people not being qualified. Trump has had a history of appointing people, and this term is no different, who are not qualified for the job. He does it nonetheless. I go back to Carla Hayden, the former CEO of Congress, and CEO of the Library of Congress, the CEO of the Library of Congress. She was eminently qualified. They got rid of her as a lawyer, who's not in the library, with no history. That part is interesting to me that they're pushing the ABA aside. I was at a gala for the ABA maybe almost less than a month ago in DC at the African American Heritage Museum, and the president of the ABA was there, Justice Sotomayor was there, and there was a feeling in the air that the administration was adverse to the people in the room. The room full of lawyers and judges, and there was no politics talk. It was never about. It was all about the law and about moving things forward. It was no talk about politics or the Trump administration. But there's a feeling in the air that there's kind of animosity from the Trump administration against the ABA and also against judges. The idea that a judge can say, "We're not following what you say," just seems to offend him, offend his administration. Pam Bondi or anyone in his administration, they seem to be very aggressive against judges, even judges who are appointed by conservative presidents, whether Trump or a prior conservative president. When they don't do what Trump says, they get offended. And that goes to my next point, the big beautiful bill. You talk about that as Trump's desire and wish. Bob is talking in a very high-minded legal way. The reality is Congress passed laws. Without Congress, no law gets passed. They are pushing it through. Forget about Trump. Congress is pushing it through. Senator was saying, "Hey, this is a good idea." He's co-opted the GOP to go along with his ideals and his principles, even though his ideals and principles are not conservative, they're not Republican. He's doing what's in his best interest, and they're following along. We haven't seen to the point where when I was younger, I had this idea that people were patriots, right? Democrats were conservative. They were patriots. They loved the country. They wanted to see the best for America. So I was always under the impression that people who were running the country were patriots. We are seeing in real time that people running the country are not patriots. Right? They are people who want their best interests. I've been saying from day one, Trump can do what he wants. We have free branches of government. The courts, surprisingly to Trump, are pushing back. Now, Robinson has done things that may have supported Trump. Even he's trying to push back. The courts are pushing back on the power of the executive. And Congress is not saying a word. Even the liberal Congress people aren't saying anything. AOC and Bernie Sanders are two small examples of people who are pushing back. But the fact that we know who they are, I mean, the other ones are not. They're solid. They haven't done anything. They're pushing a big, beautiful bill out, and most people who are watching right now have no idea what it says.
Well, yeah, as I said, it's 1,100 pages long, and I confess, like the Republican congressman did from the Midwest, I haven't read it. But, you know, speaking of judges, this thing is not just academic or intellectual. The judges have actually put together a resolution. They're asking for more money for security.
Yes.
They are concerned that the U.S. Marshals, who traditionally will provide security for judges all work for the president. And judges, as Roberts pointed out, Chief Justice Roberts pointed out in his comments weeks ago, judges now are under, it's one thing to disagree with the court's ruling, and over the last 52 years, I've had occasion to disagree with a lot of them. But it's another thing to threaten a judge's life, or to take a judge's life, or to burn his house, or to bomb his house, because you don't like the decision. Well, there's a segment of Trump's backing, the MAGA folks, who have incorporated violence as their mode of operation. And they have targeted not just judges, but they've targeted Gretchen Whitmer in Illinois. Violence is their mode of operation. Many of them were involved in January 6th. All of them had been pardoned by Trump, even the ones who were guilty of homicide, guilty of destruction of property involved. So judges are asking for security now because, and you're right, it doesn't matter what political party rules anyway. Trump doesn't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. In fact, there's no Republican Party anymore. It's Trumpian at this point. But he doesn't care what label you put on it. The only thing that's concerning him is, do you support me? And if you utter a word in any way, social media or otherwise, that disagrees with me or says anything that I consider disparaging, you go on the hit list. And depending on what position you have, how up, I can engage the cavalry, if you will, the troops, to go find your house, publish your personal residence address, publish your cell phone number, publish the name of the schools where your children attend, and engage in other kind of threatening and intimidating things, and they do that without any kind of reluctance. So and those are the foot soldiers, if you will, of the Trump party. And so many of these people, I suspect in Congress are fearful, as the judges are, of that kind of reaction. The rest of them, just clear to me, just want to keep their jobs. They don't care one bit about what's in the best interest of constituency. How could you vote for a bill that you haven't read if you and they tell me you're concerned about your constituency? You don't know how the bill even would affect them. And in cases where legislation clearly adversely affects, for example, the part of the bill would seriously defund Medicaid. Well, many of these legislators live and elected in districts where a significant portion of the constituency are poor and rely upon Medicaid and the Medicaid-related benefits to survive. They vote for the legislation anyway. They don't care. Now they realize, well, wait a second. I did this thinking it would help me get reelected. But I got a problem here. I can't keep saying to people who you're going to believe, me or your lying eyes, when they don't have food on the table, when they're not able to acquire the things that we think are reasonable for ordinary persons. So times such as this, Hassan, have you ever seen this kind of thing? I mean, I know you're a little younger than me, so maybe we should get an older guest.
I mean, for me, it's been astounding watching politics and just seeing the fall of the GOP, the acquiescence of the GOP. They've been invisible. The Trump 2.0 has come in, and they've come in, for our guests, they've come in ready to go. They had plans already drafted, they had bills already drafted, they had lawsuits ready, they had people ready. He's given a math class how things should go. I recall Obama was president, he couldn't get a judge appointed. He couldn't get a federal judge appointed. Congress would refuse to do anything. They said, I'll go make him one-term president. It was 2 terms, but he didn't get anything done. The bid was open because there was not only the Supreme Court, but in general, they couldn't get basic judges through. Trump is getting everything he wants through. Anything he want to do, he gets done. And Congress has been solid. He's teaching a math class on politics that most politicians, which is amazing. He's not a politician. Most politicians will be envious of around the world. We're not a dictatorship. Again, a dictatorship is the person holding power with the threat of a gun. Trump isn't doing that. He's holding power.
You say he isn't doing it.
He's not doing
it. But he's reminding, his folks are reminding everybody that all the people who are authorized to carry weapons and wear uniforms work for him. I mean, that to me, that's an implicit threat.
Not at all. He's doing three as a threat of not being reelected for the least of power. It's a different situation. Other countries, we will jail you, we will kill your family. Here, you won't be in power and making any more money. If that seems to be a better, for a capitalist country, a better incentive than the threat of a gun. There's been no explicit threat of a gun that we've seen so far. But
what about the threat to the judges? I just talked about the fact that many judges and politicians, Gretchen Whitmore, they've all been threatened by either death or physical harm. Well, you say not by the administration. That says, I put you in a pen with a lion and close the door and let you out. And I say, I didn't kill you, the lion did.
It's directly down. It's not a situation where it's vague and passive. It's, hey, go get them off the streets. And it's Trump is different. So, I mean, I don't believe the point, but I do think we're seeing a different kind of power in politics than we've seen before. And then other countries are seeing, and we're seeing around the world, in the Western world, the European countries, following Trump's lead. We get more and more conservative leaders who are following the lead of Trump and how he's doing things. They're mimicking his words, they're mimicking his ideology. They're going in similar ways in terms of immigration, in terms of country first, in terms of how you handle and deal with other politicians. And people actually have to think about this. Trump has been openly boastful about countries coming to him and begging for things. They're still coming. They're still coming.
Well, we've heard him say that we're begging. The Chinese say no such thing. So we never beg for anything. What we said is, if you hit me, I hit you back. That doesn't seem to me to be begging for anything. And speaking of picking people up, I just saw an article a few days ago, maybe yesterday, about ICE arresting people who appear to be immigrants at the Home Depot in South Baltimore. And there's a video of some of those arrests viral. And you get these ICE agents, some of them masked, without identification, jumping out of a vehicle like stormtroopers, and throwing people down on the rocks in the street, handcuffing them without anybody ever asking a question, without anybody saying, asking for identification, without arrest first. So these stormtroopers, these cowboys with guns, are committing all kinds of violations in my mind. And what the administration or Trump administration has been very clever in doing, they've thrown all illegal immigrants. Well, first of all, it's not been confined to illegal immigrants. It's revoked the legal status of anybody who got it under Biden. Whatever Biden did was wrong, no matter what. No matter whether it was authorized by Congress, no matter whether it was in the Constitution. If Biden did it, it was wrong, period. So his roundup of so-called of immigrants has not been limited to those who even presumed to be here illegally. It didn't matter. If your legal status came from Biden, you're illegal as far as I'm concerned. Now, and with respect to the ones who are here illegally, he's thrown everybody into the same basket. He's not trying. Remember, he keeps saying I'm keeping out drug dealers and MX-13s and all these people. Well, he's arresting people who've been here 20 years and got 2 kids and are working every day. He's arresting doctors. He's arresting college students. He's arresting people who have absolutely proven not only that they're not threats to the country, but in fact they make positive contributions to the country.
This, if you see the news, those have been done on purpose because they're provocative.
Yeah.
They're actually fighting people in ICE because they don't have enough deportation. They have fewer deportation now than they had when doing Biden's time. Biden was a big deportation.
Right.
So literally, they're doing things like staging deportation using military jets. They have 20 people on the military plane to 100 people. Like they're doing things to be so people can see it. Because the reality is that those are one of the things that they're doing where people assume they're doing what the citizens want. And the reality is, liberals went too far. They went beyond the American people wanted, and now he's trying to pull it back. He's also going too far. So you have the give and take and tug of war. Biden, and it's interesting. Trump was had long hatred for President Obama, but since he's been in Trump 2.0, he's been only interested in Biden. Anything Biden has done, he's been opposed to in a very muscular, aggressive way. Almost to forget about Obama. Biden is the main person.
Because Biden stole the election from him in 2020. Biden stole the election. Biden, in his view, was never a legitimate president, even more illegitimate than Obama because of the birther issue that Trump promoted for Obama. So everything and anything that Biden did was absolutely wrong. And one of these days we're going to deal with this whole business of liberal and conservative. You keep using that word, it sets me off. You know which one of my buttons because I have no idea. To me, liberal simply means somebody who's willing to accept that the Constitution can be read two ways. It can be, and the way that it's been read, most favorably for the majority, it doesn't necessarily suit those in power or those with money and resources who are only concerned about retaining their money and resources.
But
yeah, one of these days we actually will. So I talked about the ICE arrest in South Baltimore. I read also that Trump has deported a 4-year-old child who was admitted again to the country by Biden for the purpose of seeking and obtaining medical care for a terminal illness. Well, Trump has deported the child in spite of the fact that the child was here legitimately and they died, as I understand it, within a few days without the medical treatment that they were admitted here to get. He simply doesn't care about anything except protecting his own turf, and he views the world as his oyster. He can go to Qatar, which was previously designated as a terrorist state, and accept a $400 million airplane. It happened to be one of those places where his attorney general, a country that his attorney general previously represented as a lobbyist, and now all of a sudden they're best friends enough to give him this $400 million gift, which they started refurbishing and retrofitting just for him, obviously, some time ago. So this is just, but let's get back to something more.
Well, I want to get to the issue of the attorney hired by Baltimore, by Maryland, for the Baltimore jail lawsuit. So there were lawsuits by families of people who were in prison, incarcerated in Baltimore, and there were lawsuits for conditions and harm. And from all intents and purposes, they haven't gone very well for the state. They hired a firm, what firm is it? Butler, no, they hired Butler to defend them and really to end the litigation. They hired them, we get sued, we need to resolve this. And it's been mixed reviews, but no one has suggested that Butler Snow has done a great job. I'm always, as a local attorney, I'm always surprised when you hear local agencies go outside of the area to hire a foreign law firm, a law firm from some other state. There's many law firms in Maryland, and in Baltimore, small, mid-sized, and large, they can do the work. So when they go outside, it's always weird. But they hired Butler Snow. People complain they haven't done a great job. But the primary attorney, Matt Reeves, was recently cited, as you said, in Alabama for producing motions, citing cases that were hallucination. It's a thing in ChatGPT or in AI that it produces hallucinations. I mean, it makes from whole cloth new cases with case statutes and facts that don't actually exist in the real world.
Right.
So he cited some cases and that weren't real, and he was found out. And the reality is, the lawyers who've been found out have done that have been sanctioned by their local bar. Right. Most courts have referred them to bar for a sanction, and basically they're not being candid with the court, and they're not representing clientelism. So as we see ChatGPT and other AI, the idea is we have law firms that are billing the state, which we pay taxpayers money for, and they use AI. AI is extremely fast. So an associate do research to do a memo, it could be 2 or 3 or 4 days worth of work. AI does it in 15 seconds. I wonder how they build a client. I can almost guarantee you those big firms aren't building a client with a lower fee, with a lower amount of money. They didn't get billed 15 seconds for a presentation or for a case research because it means the lawyers used AI and did not check the actual cases. One thing, and the lawyer said in the Alabama case, he actually, I think he did it, but he didn't check the site or didn't recognize the site. That means they didn't read what was produced. That means these lawyers have so much business when they can hit a button and say, produce a memo, read it briefly and sign a name to it, but not know the cases being cited or the facts being cited in any kind of real way, and they're getting paid top dollar by the citizens of any given state. That's a horrible precedent, but I don't think that firm is alone. I think it happens all the time. And I think the bigger firms, and some small firms do it as well. I don't want to only pick on the big boys, but the lawyers get paid a lot of money for work they do. And now with AI, it's getting increasingly easier to do that work and less time to do it. And that's the problem. And I think we're going to see more and more of this happen.
You're probably right. And not only are we going to see more of it happening going forward, but I'm convinced that we haven't really seen all of it that's already happened. But there is one commonality that you'll find on this issue of engaging outside counsel. You see that not just at the state level, but in Baltimore City. And at least over the 52 or 53 years that I've been practicing here, very rarely, if ever, have I seen the government at any level engage a black law firm to represent it.
A whole different conversation.
Well, that's a conversation that we need to have. Because and that's not to say that they've never been represented by a black lawyer, but in cases where that's true, it's normally a black lawyer who's in a white law firm. But I remember, and maybe it's happened. Maybe my memory is faulty because I am getting old. I'm not getting old. I don't remember. It certainly wouldn't have privy to all the information regarding that. But I don't know. I can't remember any instance where the government has actually gone outside counsel, local, Baltimore City, for example, and hired a black law firm to do any of this work, which is extremely lucrative, can be extremely lucrative. I mean, the lawyer who withdrew from the state case here because of the
pending bar counsel,
the piracy in Alabama, was billing the state $736 an hour, and so you could be.
And how much it was? I thought that he billed $700,000.
Oh, I thought maybe you're right. I thought I read that it was billing at the hourly rate $736.
No, they billed so far $776,000 to the state, which is almost $1 million to lose.
Right.
So, two counsel here, two lawyers here that own firms, clients would be highly upset if they pay almost $1 million and you didn't win. I would think this to your point. We have a black attorney general, Anthony Brown. The AG is the probably the higher the law firm.
Right.
It wasn't Anthony Brown's tenure. It was under under private administration hired the
Brian Frosh.
Oh, Frosh. But AG Brown has kept them on. There could be a question. We have a black AG. It may be time to have some more diversity in the outside firms you actually hire. I'm in favor of hiring local firms anyway, and that may end up being a black firm. But I do think people local have a better idea as to the climate and as to the court. I don't know behind the outside firm does it. Now you have firms they have an office in Baltimore, and an office in DC, and an office in New York, but more they have an office with one guy, two people. It's a bigger firm from Chicago or from New York. I don't know if it's a local firm. A local firm is a firm that have ties and roots to the community where the lawyers are known and well known by the bar and by the bench. That's when you get the best results if you're an attorney. I don't know if those firms do that. I could be wrong. I'm not sure they do.
Well, son, I am glad that I'm not starting in this legal profession today or even within the last few years, because when I started, and for most of my career, I've been committed to the notion that lawyers have a duty and obligation and a right to evaluate whether or not the issue, the right and wrong of the situation. And I came to an era when clients understood that, and you didn't lose business simply because you refused or declined to do what the client wanted to do based upon your belief that it was simply the wrong thing to do. And you had an obligation as an attorney to try to explain to your client that it was the wrong thing to do for whatever reason you thought that to be true. I don't believe that is true today. I believe that today, slogan used to be bad clients make bad lawyers. I believe today clients hire lawyers to get what they want by any means necessary. Whether it's Chat GP or GPTI or whatever the heck it is, or any other thing. So today, lawyers I find are far less willing to be congenial. I think they're far less willing to be reasonable. They're far less willing to consider the merits on the basis of what is right. It doesn't matter anymore. It's only what the client desires. And we know from a fact, we know historically, the client desires often conflict with not just laws, but with even fundamental senses of morality. I mean, the Justice Department defended Trump's deportation of the 4-year-old child who was in urgent need of medical care, who could die within a few days, who was in the country illegally under Biden. Pam Bondi in their Justice Department defends that. Well, how can you, in good conscience, even as a human being, but under your oath as an attorney, how can you defend it? Well, the answer is, I'm getting paid to. And that's what gives the profession such a bad name.
See, I push back. I think so. We have Trump as being this big figure. He has a lot of words. He has a lot of personality. We don't always consider he didn't come to all this by himself. People came. He's not known to write bills or write law. He's not known to know the details of all the things. He's not known to be in government.
Right.
The people around him are savvy politicians and savvy professionals who've been in law and government for many, many, many years. The people who are going after all the immigrants, it's the Trump administration. It's his administration.
Are you saying he's not responsible?
No. I'm saying, you were saying as if Trump is talking down. I think it's someone talking up. I think the people who are at the top of the agencies are pushing their agenda, and their agenda is America first. Their agenda is, and some would say white supremacy. Their agenda is, we're going to do this, we're going to ram as much as possible. Yes, it's under Trump, but he's not an isolated person here. They put him in place after his first administration. Think about this. He ran the first time, people were aghast at the religious right supported Trump. They're like, he don't even know the Bible. Well, why would you support him?
Right, he had his own Bible. What are you talking about?
He doesn't know the Bible. He can't say, he can't
Boston Gold.
He can't quote the Bible. He's molesting women. He's talking about grabbing women about vagina. How can you be a Christian and support him? Because they think we can do what we want to with him in office. And the second, Trump took it over. They've done everything they wanted to in office. So not only the Trump, not only him saying do this, they will do that anyway. It will take Trump to pull him back from doing it. Keep in mind, we have we had the president of
South Africa?
No, South Africa was no example. The first one, we had the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, and Trump was in there. He'll let a pack of wild dogs. Like you saw Trump sitting with Zelensky, and the people around him were egging him on. It wasn't Trump who was the president who's been known to be an asshole. It's people, it's reporters in the back.
Well, I mean, he didn't wear a tie. Come on, he's meeting with the president in overall.
And the people
have you ever seen Elon Musk with a tie?
Like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
The people around Trump are the ones who are much more aggressive. Even the South African president, they asked the question, how can Trump, when will Trump learn that what he's saying about the South Africans is false? And what he said, his friends got to tell him. He literally said this. His friends got to tell them that it's not false. The people around him, he won't listen to me. His friends will.
In other words, he doesn't care whether it's true or not. He only cares, what's true or not depends on who he hears it from.
Yes. So the people who are advising him are pushing the idea of the immigration. In fact, they're still firing people, and I said we should be deporting more people. That's not Trump's decision. That's the people who are around his handlers. His handlers have more control. I will posit this to our viewers. We talked about, I'm going to get into the Biden situation too. We talked about Joe Biden. When Biden was president, I was concerned for the president that he was getting older. He didn't have capacity. He kept falling upstairs, falling downstairs, falling sideways, falling this way. He was stumbling. The wife was holding him up like a rag doll. And my concern was he can't be running the country. He don't know what's going on. I wouldn't be surprised if behind closed doors, more things going on with Trump than we think they are. More people are stepping in and making decisions on his behalf. He's acquiescing because he's interested. He's not really engaged intellectually. At some point, there had to be a cutoff as to who runs the country. And you can be 100 years old and have full capacity. The hard part is I'm not sure that either president, the prior President Biden or President Trump, had the full capacity that people think they do.
Well, we probably will never really know. not only that, but there's no real test of that. I mean, you've only got the 25th Amendment, which declares and that's got to start where any challenge on that basis has to start in Trump's House of Representatives. So we're never really going to see that happen. But I think you're right. We've lived long enough, at least I have, to know that physical infirmity is not any indication necessarily of intellectual deficiency.
Yeah.
As you say, I mean, Franklin Roosevelt, the reason there were put term limits in and nobody saw it, he was in a wheelchair when he was last born. But it's the media. I mean, the media began this notion that, Biden did have some physical health issues. He had surgery, he had brain surgery.
How about this? Joe Biden currently has been diagnosed with his fourth degree. Is it renal cancer he has?
I think it's prostate
cancer. Which means presidents get exams. We have a whole doctor that they hire to examine the president. We're supposed to know that our president is healthy. I find it highly unlikely that within a few months of leaving the office, he's diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and he didn't know beforehand.
Well,
highly unlikely.
It depends on how often you get examination. That depends on, there are a lot of.
I suppose the president has to get examination every single year.
False positives, particularly in relation to the detection of prostate cancer. But you're right. The chance, more likely than not, it was known for some time that he had an illness that, if untreated effectively, could ultimately lead to death or physical illness. But that doesn't mean he was intellectually incapable of. So if you got one guy, if you've got one guy who can't fulfill the duties of his office because of his illness, and you got another guy who one of his duties is to daily read the paper that tells you the condition, who won't read, I mean, how are you better off?
So Vince is a liberal versus conservative talking now. Trump isn't required to read those daily briefings. He's not required to. We want him to. We will hold our other officials.
We want the president to know what's going on in the country and the world. That's why we want it.
We elected him, so we know he don't. So we know he don't. I think this. But the country, like whether you're not
79 people, but I'm probably 75. It don't matter.
We matter. We still part of the country. Biden was running for office for another term. If he was running for office knowing he had stage 4 prostate cancer, which means he may not fulfill his term, that is an issue. If he knew, and people around him knew, he has severe cancer that either one, he may not make it for another 4 years, or two, the treatment that he's going to receive will really impair his ability to be president. That part taken into consideration. We should have known that. We did not.
Well, that's because there's no scientific way of ascertaining that. There's no ironclad way. There's no scientific way of demonstrating that any particular illness, unless it's a brain aneurysm or something, will necessarily prevent you from discharging properly the duties of your office, because most of your duties are delegated to other people in the first instance. So you don't. That's why you have people around you. You don't know the notion that the president actually makes involved in the deliberative process, rather than simply decide to say do it or don't do it. I think most presidents, most of the heads of most organizations are more the do it or don't do it. The deliberative process that comes up with the recommendation is done by the staff, not by the person at the top.
The reason we have an examiner or a doctor to examine the president so that people can know whether the president is suitable. Your point is we don't know based on science. If you or I, we know get prostate cancer diagnosis, doctor will tell us here's 2 options. You get chemo, and this was what happened, or you may not make it out in another 6 months. And they know to a certain level of certainty. Now, in other cases where they say 6 months, you live 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, but they know fairly well based on the level of your cancer. I think his is fairly severe and fairly aggressive. They know how long you have and what treatment you have to have, what the treatment does to you. And the question, if we didn't care about a person's diagnosis, we wouldn't have to go through the whole thing with Trump going to the doctor and saying he's the most fit person in the world. The idea to have the Dr. General for the president, we have it for a purpose. It's not ministerial. It's a real thing, and people should know the condition of the person.
Well, maybe it should know, but it's not legally required. Okay. There's no statute that I'm aware of that requires the president to take examinations during any particular time. And there's certainly no statute I'm aware of that requires the president to disclose publicly at any particular time, and certainly not on a regular basis, what his health condition may be. It's just not required. Oftentimes, people that got into that because people running for office have made it a campaign issue. You know, I can jog a mile a day, or my handicap is Biden. I think he fabricated it. So when Biden said, "I got a 6 handicap in golf," and if you're a golfer, you know that a 6 handicap means almost somebody who can almost par every hole. And you look at Biden, somebody, as you say, can't walk up and down steps without help, and being able to have sufficient balance to swing a golf club that efficiently is unlikely. Not necessarily impossible, but indeed unlikely. But here's getting back to another local issue. This designation of Baltimore City and other jurisdictions as sanctuary jurisdictions in Maryland. Trump has frozen. We all know the problems that they've had with flooding in Ellicott City. We all know the problems that we've had with flooding in South Baltimore. He has frozen the flood prevention funds from both of those areas. In addition to that, he's looking for other monies that were coming to the state of Maryland that he can cut off because he's designated the whole state as a sanctuary jurisdiction. Baltimore City, in addition to the funds frozen for South Baltimore, could lose another $200 million in federal funds. There are 12,000 people, 12,000 federal employees who work in the city of Baltimore. I don't know how many of them actually live here, but they work here, and that means they spend money here. They buy lunch here, they do other things here. Those 12,000 jobs at risk, and the mayor's response is, "We're not a sanctuary city, we're a welcoming city." I mean, the fact of the matter is, I don't expect any local politician fearing, unless you have the nerve of the mayor of Newark, and you saw that he was arrested for it. You know, no elected politician in this country has the power, the constitutional power, as the president. So you don't have to, you're not demonstrating manhood by saying, I'm strapping on my boots and one of us gonna get out of town by sundown, or else you're gonna wind up in Boot Hill. That kind of cowboy mentality means nothing. It's delusional, it's distractive, and the fact of the matter, however, there is a time, I think, you have to stand up. You have to stand up, even at the risk of losing re-election. You have to stand up for what's right. And quite frankly, I don't see a lot of that in public office holders. We see it with Jasmine Crockett. Let's talk about her for a minute. I mean, that's from Texas. Is not afraid of anybody, and but she's an anomaly as far as I can see. She is you won't see her kind of guts in Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader of the so-called Democratic Party. You don't see that. Why is that? Why is it, Hassan, that every elected official that I, including my former partner and now deceased Elijah Cummings, every elected official I've known, their primary concern has always been getting reelected, assuming they were eligible to run again. Their first and most important thing to them was getting reelected. Why this obsession with power?
I was thinking that Jasmine Crockett was previously a private counsel. Hakeem Jeffries was a prosecutor, I believe.
Yeah.
They orientated differently. You know many prosecutors, so do I. They orientated differently. The prosecutors are within the system. Defense counsels, everything we do outside the system. We see things differently. Most people, and it's a big debate about people in Congress. When they go in Congress, they make about the same as most Americans. But once they're there for a couple of years, they're millionaires. When you're near to see the power, you're near money. You're near wealth, you're near resources that you wouldn't get otherwise. Some of the people are superstars in their own field. Some of them are greatly intelligent. They're the best lawyers you can find. Most people, most elected officials, are just that. They're elected officials. They can't do anything to be elected officials. Right? They don't have the capacity to go and make $1 million a year as anything other than being a senator or a congressperson who have deals being brought to them. That's why the reality.
That's justified?
No, your question wasn't justified. You get why? Why are they worried about being reelected? Is there only avenue to?
I was talking before you.
You're talking before. paying me, clients pay me for services, they don't like the services, they fire me.
Right.
That's it. So I go get another client. Most of the people who we have in Congress don't have the capacity to go out and get other work. They just don't. So they can be great in Congress, they get great quips, and they can go to town halls and say, I'm fighting for you guys, because the salary they get paid is a small amount compared to the lobbyists and the deals they got coming along.
So does that mean we should only elect people who don't need the money for their job?
The idea has to be we pay more. I mean, there's been some ideas going around that Congress don't get paid enough, but you pay more than you get paid now. That's a perverse incentive for me. I don't know that the person we think is on a toll, and we give them more. I don't know that that's right.
That's right. If your incentive is financial gain, that can never be enough. The answer to you is always going to be give me more. So there is no amount of money. I don't know how much Congress people or elected officials, even locally, make. I know in Baltimore City, the mayor is not the highest paid employee in the city. He's not even the highest paid employee of city employees.
The governor's the highest paid person in the state.
But the power and the perks that go along with that. The fact that he can call the police chief and he's going to answer. He can send them. We get drunk with power. We get drunk with the notion that I can wave my hand and everybody in the room applauds, whether they like what I'm saying or not, because of the office that I hold. That kind of power over people is in addition to the desire for financial gain is what permeates, seems to me, the entire political spectrum.
We need a change in how we elect politicians. We certainly do. The idea is so much money involved. If we can do stats and say when they go in, they work $20,000 and come out with $20 million, and they get paid $200,000 a year, something right about that.
Well, look at the Obamas.
Yes, the Obamas, the Clintons.
Yeah,
they left office and they were broke.
And then they buy $11 million house in Martha's Vineyard.
Yes.
And plus all the other properties they have, from book deals and television appearances and all that kind of, there's no question, but at least they did it after they were office. Trump's doing it now. Trump's doing it right now. I mean, what other president spent according to Jasmine Crockett, $26 million playing golf? Now, because every time he goes to play golf, one of his golf courses, one of his Secret Service got to go. They got to go before he plays.
I have 10 shows on what's happening with the country right now with our administration. I want to jump in before we put the show. We had someone who was practicing. NBA YoungBoy coming home.
Okay.
You know what NBA YoungBoy is?
No.
Of course you don't. NBA YoungBoy is a young rapper. He was convicted, I believe, of gun charges. Well, guess what? Trump partner. He got guilty partner. Larry Hoover. He was partner.
I don't know him either.
Another gangster, he was partner. Now, these are two high-profile partners. They are two black. NBA YoungBoy is a young African American man who was partner, a young rapper, wealthy rapper, and Larry Hoover is a well-known gang affiliate, gatekeeper, and criminal crime boss, and they were both partners. And the Larry Hoover partner was interesting because he's not coming home. He was pardoned for federal crime, but he's facing 200 years of state time. So he may still be in jail.
Right.
NBA YoungBoy may be coming home. But there are two high-profile black men who pardoned. Trump has a pardon czar. His pardon czar is a black woman who was incarcerated for 20 plus years. And what's the young lady named from California? Kim Kardashian helped to get her pardon. So now she's home and she's the pardon czar for the administration.
What is the pardon czar? Review.
She's the person who determines. So they said this. I was trying to find a salary. There's no indication the pardons are it's a real position. So when you pardon people and he's there, she's smiling. But I can't find who's paying her salary. It wasn't clear that she's the actual formal employee of the federal government.
But you're not saying that she actually has the authority. You're saying that she's the one who has the final say on what recommendation goes to the president for pardon.
Yeah, ultimately, final authority is the president.
Okay.
But both Larry Hoover family as well as NBA YoungBoy have said she was responsible for that part. They come out and said thank you to this woman. She was instrumental in us getting pardons. I'm assuming she's an intermediary, and she say, "Hey, President, these people should be pardoned." He said, "Okay, I got you." And she's a black woman.
But apparently, that's not the only way to get to Trump for pardon. You can go to Mar-a-Lago to an affair for cryptocurrency people, and you can give them $1 million, and your son can be who's already been convicted of tax evasion, theft, fraud, misrepresentation, stealing millions and millions of dollars, and is about to go to jail for minimum period of 18 months, can be pardoned before he ever steps foot in Lewisburg.
So that part's true. And again, the Griffin's going on now. We talk about the 4 shows. My point is, there's been some argument, conversation that maybe the pardon czar is being used as a shield against some of the anti-black and racist policies of the administration. At the same time, the pardon czar was a black woman who was in prison for 20 years. They're also going as aggressively as possible against DEI. At the same time, they're going as aggressively as possible to deport as many people as they possibly can and to embarrass people who are here, maybe legally, maybe illegally, as much as possible. At the same time, they're saying we want to bring white South Africans in and not anyone else who may have darker hue skin. At the same time,
Chill
countries, any country that's not a European country.
Right.
And when they're not a European country, like South Africa, we'll go in and find the Europeans, but we'll find the white folks in the black country.
Right.
Having the black pardon czar, maybe giving him cover for some of his race, and even pardoning black men. He pardoned 2 high-profile people that people in the community would know who they are. And it was no reason for it other than the fact that they may be action to shield him from some claims of white supremacy, and because the people around him aren't pro-black. The people around him aren't supporting NBA YoungBoy.
The devout racists, Stephen Miller, Steve Bannon, and David Duke, and all those folks who sit around the kitchen table with them or in his name. But speaking of ruses, and I'm going to say this, and this is probably going to be pretty much the end of the show today. I just want to give you this as food for thought, you and the viewing audience. This whole fight between Trump and Harvard University, the oldest and the most prestigious, arguably, and certainly one of the richest, if not the richest, white institutions of higher education. I think it's all a ruse. Harvard can't lose. Harvard's not going anywhere. They're not going to throw. They've got too much money anyway. But I think it's a ruse. I think it's a setup. I think, and mark my words, and maybe I'm paranoid, but just because I'm paranoid don't mean they ain't trying to kill me. I think that you're going to see the people like Stephen Miller and Steve Bannon and that group turn their focus to black colleges. I think sooner or later we're going to see them try to cut off funding and support for so-called HBCUs. I think that ultimately, just like he turned his attention to the Smithsonian after getting rid of everybody black high up in the administration. Anyway, I'm going to throw that out as food for thought. Think about it until the next edition, if you will, of Money, Power, and Politics. Today, I'm signing off again. I'm Robert Shield, along with my friend and colleague and co-counsel, Hassan Barnes. Hope you've enjoyed and been informed by what we've had to say to you today. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel, listen in, tell your friends, and send your suggestions even. And good luck to our crew that's recovering from the medical procedure. Safe travels to the other half of our crew on their way back from the conference in New York. See you.
Take care, guys.